Hundreds who spend their time saving lives were out in full force in Las Vegas tonight to honor the victims of 9/11. Valley Police and other emergency crews gathered at a candlelight vigil to honor the souls lost last September. Dana Drake was at tonight's memorial and she joins us now live with more. Dana?
Well, Jeff, the rain earlier today destroyed some audio and visual equipment set up here for the event. But just before the ceremony was about to begin, the sun came out and even a rainbow, allowing the emotional memorial ceremony to go on. As the sun set, the color guard marched to honor those who were killed 1 year ago, September 11th. Hundreds came to the Police Memorial Park to unite and to remember.
Just to try to look back and make sure we don't fall back to where we were. You know, we need to stay strong.
To honor the people that passed and to honor the people that support us every day and keep us protected.
Not only remember those fallen heroes from September 11th a year ago and all the citizens who perished as well in that terrible tragedy of September 11th, but also to recognize not just the respect but the courage of the men and women of public safety at every level of every opportunity who go forward every single day knowing that that day could be their last.
For many on this day, this gathering of law enforcement along with the community they serve was the best place to be.
Well, I think it's so important about what happened and the tragedy is that it's kind of brought and united all of us together. And for the first time in years, we're one united nation. I think that's something very important for us to always remember.
Some of the people who came out here tonight actually knew people who were killed on September 11th, and they say being out here together made the whole day much easier to bear. Reporting live, Dana Drake, News 1. Back to you, Jeff.
A little bit of healing tonight. Dana, thank you very much.
This day has been full of touching memorials, among them Las Vegas firefighters honoring their fallen New York comrades. News 1's Byron Gast takes us to their service and shows you some of the others.
Las Vegas wakes up to the sound of mourning. Bagpipes lead hundreds of firefighters, police, and other emergency professionals on a 45-minute march through a rainy early morning into daylight and a different step. At Fire Station 18, the somber march turns ceremonial. Firefighters remember their fallen New York brothers and sisters.
From city to city and state to state, if you walked into any fire station, once you've been a firefighter for any length of time, then you would know any guy in any fire station that you walked into.
Flags also honor the 343 fallen New York firefighters, as do firefighter radios. The International Association of Fire Chiefs reads the names of fallen associates.
A lot of these, we were all affected by September the 11th, and this is our way of bringing some type of closure to this event. We've invited the airline stewards from United Airlines. They lost one of their planes and some of their co-workers. And I think it's important for everybody in the country to put some type of closure to this. We'll never forget it. It's impacted us at all, but this just helps us get through this day.
The firefighters issue their universal signal that they've lost a colleague, a series of rings at the moment the first tower collapsed. The bell tolls again, the moment when 1 year ago, the second tower went down. As prayers are said here, more prayers across town.
God bless America.
And let us all say together,
Amen.
State and local leaders gather at the Grant Sawyer building to honor police and firefighters who lost their lives 1 year ago. And to honor those who still protect us every day.
I'd like them to stand up so you can take a look at them. It's a good bunch of guys.
Governor Kenny Gwinn names the anniversary Patriot Day, relating 9/11 to Pearl Harbor.
The young people will grow up for the rest of their lives just like we did with December the 7th. And it will allow us to always remember and bring to fore what happened to us, to all of us in America.
Young people do their own part in the salute, honoring our nation's song and soldiers. Those currently protecting our country remember those who died doing the same in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania, saluting men and women turned by terror into war heroes. Byron Gast, News 1.
Churches, synagogues, and mosques around the valley today also became a place of remembrance. The St. Viator Catholic Church was just one church that held services throughout the day. Pictures of the victims were displayed on the church doors as a reminder of the lives lost.
This is just our way to respond. Many of our parishioners, I'm sure, donated blood or donated finances, but this is, in the words of our introduction, as in any time of need, we turn to God in prayer for healing and for peace.
St. Viator's services also featured special readings and music to promote peace and healing. We'll be right back.
Using the Statue of Liberty as his backdrop, President Bush tonight took the stage in New York to address the nation. Here now is the president's speech in its entirety.
Good evening. A long year has passed since enemies attacked our country. We've seen the images so many times they are seared on our souls. And remembering the horror, reliving the anguish, reimagining the terror is hard and painful. For those who lost loved ones, it's been a year of sorrow, of empty places, of newborn children who will never know their fathers here on earth. For members of our military, it's been a year of sacrifice and service far from home. For all Americans, it has been a year of adjustment, of coming to terms with the difficult knowledge that our nation has determined enemies and that we are not invulnerable to their attacks. Yet in the events that have challenged us, we've also seen the character that will deliver us. We've seen the greatness of America in airline passengers who defied their hijackers and ran a plane into the ground to spare the lives of others. We've seen the greatness of America in rescuers who rushed up flights of stairs toward peril. And we continue to see the greatness of America in the care and compassion our citizens show to each other. September the 11th, 2001 will always be a fixed point in the life of America. The loss of so many lives left us to examine our own. Each of us was reminded that we are here only for a time. And these counted days should be filled with things that last and matter. Love for our families, love for our neighbors, and for our country. Gratitude for life, and to the giver of life. We resolved a year ago to honor every last person lost. We owe them remembrance, and we owe them more. We owe them and their children and our own the most enduring monument we can build, a world of liberty and security made possible by the way America leads and by the way Americans lead our lives. The attack on our nation was also an attack on the ideals that make us a nation. Our deepest national conviction is that every life is precious, because every life is the gift of a Creator who intended us to live in liberty and equality. More than anything else, this separates us from the enemy we fight. We value every life. Our enemies value none, not even the innocent, not even their own. And we seek the freedom and opportunity that give meaning and value to life. There is a line in our time, and in every time, between those who believe that all men are created equal and those who believe that some men and women and children are expendable in the pursuit of power. There is a line in our time and in every time between the defenders of human liberty and those who seek to master the minds and souls of others. Our generation has now heard history's call, and we will answer it. America has entered a great struggle that tests our strength and even more our resolve. Our nation is patient and steadfast. We continue to pursue the terrorists in cities and camps and caves across the earth. We are joined by a great coalition of nations to rid the world of terror. And we will not allow any terrorist or tyrant to threaten civilization with weapons of mass murder. Now and in the future, Americans will live as free people, not in fear, and never at the mercy of any foreign plot or power. This nation has defeated tyrants and liberated death camps, raised this lamp of liberty to every captive land. We have no intention of ignoring or appeasing history's latest gang of fanatics trying to murder their way to power. They are discovering, as others before them, the resolve of a great country and a great democracy. In the ruins of two towers, under a flag unfurled at the Pentagon, at the funerals of the lost, we have made a sacred promise to ourselves and to the world. We will not relent until justice is done and our nation is secure. What our enemies have begun, we will finish. I believe there's a reason that history has matched this nation with this time. America strives to be tolerant and just. We respect the faith of Islam, even as we fight those whose actions defile that faith. We fight not to impose our will, but to defend ourselves and extend the blessings of freedom. We cannot know all that lies ahead. Yet we do know that God has placed us together in this moment to grieve together, to stand together, to serve each other and our country. And the duty we have been given, defending America and our freedom, is also a privilege we share. We're prepared for this journey. And our prayer tonight is that God will see us through and keep us worthy. Tomorrow is September the 12th. A milestone is passed, and a mission goes on. Be confident. Our country is strong. And our cause is even larger than our country. Ours is the cause of human dignity, freedom guided by conscience, and guarded by peace. This ideal of America is the hope of all mankind. That hope drew millions to this harbor. That hope still lights our way. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. May God bless America.
President Bush earlier tonight in New York City. On the local front, Nevada Governor Kenny Gwinn today officially proclaimed September 11th, 2002 as Patriot Day here in Nevada. Governor Gwinn made the announcement from the Grant Sawyer building this afternoon. Today's ceremony included a military flyover accompanied by a 21-gun salute. Gwinn says despite the great loss, September 11th, 2002 was a day that made the spirit of America much stronger.
Whereas from this great tragedy, a new spirit has arisen. A stronger sense of family, community, and brotherhood. And most of all, probably patriotism. And we have come together as Nevadans. We're strong, proud, and battle-born.
Christy Guidry will share a message now from Senator John N.
Governor Gwinn says the attacks of last September 11th gave him more internal ammunition, he says, to resolve the state's budget crisis. And we will be right back.
This day of remembrance was marked by yet another tragedy.
This one actually comes, though, in the world of sports. Pro Football Hall of Famer Johnny Unitas died today of a heart attack. Unitas, of course, best remembered for leading the Baltimore Colts to 3 NFL championships. The decorated quarterback was the first NFL player to throw 40,000 yards. He's actually regarded by many in the NFL as the greatest quarterback in the history of pro football. Johnny Unitas was 69. Now back to the major story this Wednesday, remembering the attack of 9/11. Tonight, Peter Viles pays tribute to all of the souls America lost that day last September.
The mayor just put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Michael, please pray for us." And Michael turned with that big Irish smile, said, "I always do," and then kept on running with the firefighters into the building.
They are better than the rest of us. They are better than the wealthiest, the most powerful, the most gifted.
They were too young to die. They were in the prime of their lives. They had plans for the future, things to build, places to see, children to raise. It doesn't seem right or fair, and it never will.
One life touches so many others. One death can leave sorrow that seems almost unbearable. But to all of you who lost someone here, I want to say, you are not alone. The American people will never forget the cruelty that was done here, and in New York, and in the sky over Pennsylvania.
If we all work together, the city is going to get through this, the people of the city are going to get through it, and the city of New York is going to demonstrate that a free democratic society can absorb this kind of blow and become stronger by it.
We will build a monument. Their names will be etched in granite. There will be an eternal flame burning. But I'll tell you what's more important than that. And that is that we show them as they look down upon us that we are not afraid today.
Our nation is united as never before. We are united not only in our grief, but also in our resolve to build a better world.
We'll be right back.
A year ago, when America was attacked by terrorists, we asked Nevadans for their help.
Today, we'd like to say thank you for the remarkable job you have done.
Nevadans have been charitable, patriotic, and peaceful, a shining example to the world.
But the job is not done. We are still fighting the war on terrorism.
On this anniversary, please take the time to remember our troops in Afghanistan and all over the world.
And please keep up all your good work. God bless you, and God bless America.
Welcome back, everybody. After the attack on America a year ago today, many emergency workers here in Clark County went to New York to do whatever they could to help.
And among them, a group of officers from Metro's K-9 unit. They saw the devastation at Ground Zero close up. Channel 8 Eyewitness News anchor Paula Francis tonight with their story.
Unbelievable when you seen it on TV before we left. It was one thing, but when you arrived there, it was beyond, your imagination. You looked at it, and what you saw was the ultimate rubble pile that was 4 stories high.
Mike Horn and 3 other Metro K-9 officers spent several days at Ground Zero in New York City.
The smell was what I remember the most out of it. Chemicals and the smell of death and the mud and the water and the dust and everything else all combined into one.
The local team went to the disaster area armed with the four-legged partners they work with every day in Las Vegas.
Dogs were in high demand there, and if you showed up with a search dog, they put you to work.
When Metro's K-9 team arrived 2 weeks after the attacks, hopes of finding victims still alive were fading.
We had to constantly touch the ground to make sure that it wasn't too hot for our dogs to walk on.
The focus had shifted from rescue efforts to recovery attempts. Metro's Eric Kearns and Steve Junge helped recover the remains of one victim.
When we saw the clothing, it was kind of made it real, and for me, and knowing that was somebody's daughter at one time, and that was possibly somebody's mother, somebody's sister. It was somebody that had gone to work that day, not expecting anything like this to happen.
Other images stand out in the officers' minds, too.
I will always remember the people that were walking around with signs that had pictures of their loved ones on them, hoping that somebody had seen them or knew where they were. That was very emotional.
So was the outpouring of support from grateful New Yorkers.
To walk across the streets of New York City and on every single corner have people holding signs up celebrating the rescuers that were there from every part of the nation to help them out. I mean, that really does something to you.
It also changes the way these officers look at each day.
In my life as a police officer, it had always crossed my mind when I go to work, that I kiss my wife and it may be the last time I kiss her. You never know. You never know when it's going to be over. And so kind of treat every day like it could be the last day.
The members of Metro's K-9 unit who went to New York City are part of the nation's federal emergency management team. We'll be right back.
They may not have been in the direct line of fire last September 11th, but the local mom and pop shops certainly felt their own share of the aftershock. Tonight, Channel 8 Eyewitness News anchor Paula Francis takes a look at how businesses here in the valley suffered at the hands of the terrorists.
What are you having this morning?
No one needs to ask Lee Barnes what he wants to eat. Every morning at around 7 o'clock, Barnes stops by Jam's for his usual, a bowl of oatmeal and the morning paper.
Do you like the home fries?
Many of Jam's customers are the regulars who stop by for a meal at least 3 or 4 days a week. But they're not as regular as they were 1 year ago.
The amount of dollars we do is less than last year. People are coming in less and eating less, but still coming in. People are definitely sharing meals more often than they used to, and are definitely using more credit cards than before.
A couple of blocks down Rainbow, it's the same story. Teddy Bear, a shop that sells gift baskets and flowers. Owner Jody Lamonte says some customers are opting to spend less these days.
Their priorities change. They may be held back a little bit. Let's not spend the way we used to on certain things.
In the same strip mall, a British grocery shut down last month. The owner blames the plummet in shoppers after 9/11. Even the dentist next door says revenue is down.
Everybody's been affected with the stock market. No matter what you had last year, you have less this year, and I don't care who you are.
But not all the diners are cutting back. One regular says that plays right into the hands of the terrorists.
If I start to be scared of doing things differently, then the terrorists have won, and I refuse to let that happen in my life.
You folks have a great day and a better weekend. We'll see ya.
Paula Francis reporting. Congress has stepped in to help those mom and pops. After 9/11, lawmakers approved additional funding to provide low-cost loans to help small businesses around the country get back on their feet.
After a brief pause for remembrance, things got rolling on Wall Street. New York Governor George Pataki and New York's Mayor Michael Bloomberg, along with former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, rang today's opening bell. They were joined, as you see there, by members of the city's fire and police departments. You may remember New York's financial district was shut down and all trading was suspended in the days following the attacks.
And with more on today's abbreviated trading session, here's Deborah Costrin.
The markets opened a few hours late with some gains, but by the closing bell was negative. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 21 points. The S&P 500 fell marginally, and the NASDAQ slid 4 points. The New York Stock Exchange opened at noon. That was about 2.5 hours later than usual. Some of the gainers today came from the telecom sector. Shares of SBC Communications and also shares of Verizon led early market gains on expectations of pickup in growth will bolster earnings. And shares of Honeywell, though, held down the blue chips after some news concerning asbestos claims. Honeywell faces a trial in a lawsuit that claims that auto mechanics contracted lung disease by breathing asbestos dust while working on brakes. Lawyers for the 5 plaintiffs are seeking $100 million in damages to compensate for their deadly lung disease. And tomorrow it's back to a regular trading schedule with earnings report from such companies as Adobe Systems and Candies, plus initial jobless claim figures. And that's the latest in business. With the Bloomberg After the Bell report, I'm Deborah Costrin.
Is of course 2,500 miles from Las Vegas, but when the attack happened last year, it touched lives here in southern Nevada, especially one Las Vegas woman. Her cousin died rescuing others from the World Trade Center collapse. That story tonight from Channel 8's Colleen May.
I got a phone call. My mom very upset, so the towers were collapsed. We thought Gerald was okay. They had called. They were trapped in the building, but they had called and said there were 5 of them. Call the families, let them know we're okay, and we're going to get out of here. They never found anything. We expected something, or I did anyway. His dad says he didn't. But I expected something, but they found nothing. Those guys have steel tools with their names on them that nothing was ever found.
Dawn Vike believes her cousin, Gerald Atwood, a New York firefighter, died after becoming trapped in the South Tower on September 11th.
He grew up helpful, and so I guess he couldn't help but be a firefighter or something like that, because that's just Gerald. Gerald is just one that he wants everybody around him happy and safe.
Wave to the camera.
Atwood left behind a wife, 2 children, and a third on the way.
Who's that?
Daddy.
That's Daddy. So many people died because what they believe in, which is to help somebody in trouble.
Vike took a trip back to New York City this summer and visited with her family, including Atwood's mother, father, brother, and son.
I had a hard time getting on with what I had to do. I cried every day. I didn't function right. And, you know, it takes time, but you gotta get over that. Actually, my trip to New York is what I believe actually got me to stop crying every day.
Vike says the grief and sorrow will continue, but she hopes the memorials and ceremonies being held today will begin to serve as a healing process for her and her fellow Americans. Colleen May, Channel 8 Eyewitness News.
Gerald Atwood's name is included in what's called the Chain of Life, something that's on display right now at the World Trade Center site.
Dawn is not alone. Tonight, Las Vegans are remembering Barbara Edwards, who was on board the plane that hit the Pentagon. Edwards was a teacher at Palo Verde High School. Yesterday, students, friends, and faculty held a memorial in her honor. Handprints of the students will be imprinted in cement around a flagpole bearing her name.
For those who were actually there, who actually saw the smoke and devastation, 9/11 is more than an image on television. It's a moment forever seared in memory. Tonight, Cheryl Atkinson introduces us to 3 people, 3 heroes who survived the horror that was the Pentagon on September 11th, 2001.
At the Pentagon, the building may be restored, but the human spirit remains under construction. That's evident in the lives of 3 people we first profiled in the early days after the terrorist attacks: John Yates, Eric Jones, and Army Ranger Christopher Brahman. With medals for combat in Iraq and Yugoslavia, Brahman now finds himself in a role he never dreamed of, going to schools around the country, providing a soldier's insight into September 11.
It actually helps me pull a shroud off and allows me to heal. It's a healing to be able to go and talk.
And there's a lot of healing to be done. Brahman was at the Pentagon last year when the plane hit, but he ignored his own injuries and dove back into the burning building to help others.
As we went down the hallways where we recovered our first 17 of the victims.
He worked for 4 days straight, retrieving remains of 63 fallen comrades. A year later, this soldier is still doing battle with the after effects.
When you interviewed me first, I was still living it. I mean, I'd closed my eyes and I'd never left the site. I was only sleeping about 2 to maybe 3 hours a night because the nightmares that would happen. And I couldn't talk before without crying.
Brahman developed serious breathing problems from going back into the burning building so many times. And now he believes he'll never again do combat alongside other Army Rangers. But he still plays an important role in the national consciousness.
When you're speaking to kids, what's the basic message you hope they carry away?
Not to be afraid, that Americans are survivors and not victims. And that's why I go around the country and speak, because I refuse to be a victim.
On the surface, Eric Jones's life doesn't seem all that different. He's in college looking to become a doctor, but that's where the normalcy ends. September 11th still haunts him night and day. Eric was headed for class last year when he saw the plume of smoke rising from the Pentagon. A paramedic and volunteer firefighter, Eric instinctively risked his own life and drove toward the danger. He recovered bodies for 4 days, then headed to New York to do the same thing there. He also captured heart-wrenching images on film, images he can't get out of his mind.
Sometimes talking about it has actually helped, but other times just seeing the recurring images and reliving that on a daily experience, it's been tough.
Eric says doing positive things like raising $10,000 for an anti-violence group helps him forget some of the negative. But he's not ready to resume work as a paramedic. When he did return to the Pentagon, it was to receive the nation's highest civilian honor for courage, the Medal of Valor. And courage seems to run in Eric's family. At his awards ceremony were his father, who flew 80 combat missions in Vietnam, and his grandfather, an original Tuskegee Airman. While Eric struggles with the memories and nightmares, one image he's not trying to erase is the goodness he witnessed in others.
What happened is proof that when the times are tough and when our country is faced with something like this, we really do rally, and it brings out the best in people.
John Yates also saw the best in people, especially those who sent so many cards and letters. Last week, he reunited with other burn survivors at Washington Hospital Center. Yates was a civilian worker at the Pentagon. When the plane hit, he somehow made a desperate long crawl, leading others through the smoke and darkness to safety.
I just know somebody grabbed the back of my right leg, and I just, I was crawling and they were crawling behind me.
Now he marvels at how far he's come since we first met him in the hospital last year. Here's what his hands look like today.
And to look at my hands now, you would look at amazement. I mean, there's hardly any scarring.
The emotional scars are more tenacious. One of the hardest things he's done is return to work in the building where he nearly lost his life.
First, it was a trip to the parking lot, and then it was a visit inside.
Full of reminders of his brush with death.
I swiped my badge, and as I stepped on the other side, I could smell smoke. And immediately it brought the taste of the jet fuel back into my mouth.
Yates has been back on the job for several months, living proof, he believes, that the human spirit endures.
I'm here. I'm healing. America is healing. We are moving on with our lives in the midst of this war that we're undergoing, and that I'm getting back to being me again.
It appears the entire country is headed in that direction, one person at a time. Cheryl Atkinson, Washington.
184 people were killed in the Pentagon attack, 125 in the building, 59 on the plane. We'll be right back.
This Las Vegas One historical moment is brought to you by General Motors and Green Valley Aquariums.
Take a closer look at a dollar bill. The pyramid on the back actually represents strength and permanence and has been left unfinished to signify future growth of the country. You'll also see 1776 printed along the bottom in Roman numerals.
The Las Vegas One historical moment has been brought to you by General Motors and Green Valley Aquariums.
You're watching News One special coverage of 9/11. Today, of course, is a day to remember what happened a year ago in New York, Washington, and in Pennsylvania. With that in mind, here's a look at today's Las Vegas Sun. The front page listing those killed at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, and in the crash in that field in Pennsylvania. 3,025 people died on September 11th, 2001. They, of course, are the reason we stop to remember today, 1 year later. Finally, tonight, so much has changed over this past year, especially near Ground Zero.
That's right. The real estate has certainly changed. And as Lee Cowan reports, unity and a sense of renewal has strengthened.
A year later, Lower Manhattan is missing more than the shadow of two mammoth towers. It's missing its hustle and bustle, too. Its tourists, its businesses.
Many are hanging on by a shoestring. Some have disappeared, others probably will.
New York's cleanup was unlike any other. So much so, it's hard to tell now that some 30 million square feet of real estate was either damaged or destroyed. But although the scenery may have changed, the mood hasn't. The buildings left standing that night, like the Millennium Hilton, stood more as eerie reminders than fortresses of hope. Ordinary moments became extraordinary symbols. How could a cup of coffee survive when 3,000 people didn't? And although today the Millennium looks like nothing more than a building under renovation, it, like others, is a business trying to escape the past. But then there's the Chelsea Jean Company, which embraced that past. Instead of wiping everything clean, the owner, David Cohen, sealed a portion of the damaged store behind glass, leaving it just as it was. It brings in tourists, but very few customers. Who feels like shopping, he says, when you're wiping away tears.
We are down probably about 40% as far as sales, and that's already put us too much into the red that we cannot keep the operation going.
And so he's closing, adding even more empty space to a neighborhood so empty, taken together, it would roughly equal the size of downtown Milwaukee.
It used to be hard to get business to stay in New York City because of our high costs. That is not the primary problem. Today, the primary concern of business really has to do with another attack.
Chicken soup? Billions of dollars in federal and state aid have enticed some people to stay. When Peter Tablos saw his stage door deli after the attack, he said never again. But 6 months later, he was back, feeding a new brand of customers, construction crews.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not going to get rich, but it's okay.
And these days, okay is more than anyone expected.
Next, please.
As one business owner put it, time may not heal all wounds, but it does give us a chance to get used to the pain. Lee Cowan, New York.
And it is a very resilient city.
That is so true. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Take care.